It's April 2024 in Cambodia. A group of fishermen near the Ream naval base notices something strange. Massive Chinese ships docked under heavy security. The once quiet base is now bustling with secret construction, with piers large enough to handle warships. Officially, Cambodia denies any foreign military presence, but satellite images, reported by the New York Times, reveal a pier nearly identical to China's Djibouti naval base, capable of hosting warships. Well, this isn't the first time concerns have been raised. In 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported a leaked agreement between Cambodia and China to lease 77 hectares of the Ream base to China for 30 years. At that time, the Cambodian government quickly denied this report, calling it fake news. But these developments suggest otherwise. So, why is China investing so heavily here? Is this really just an economic partnership, or is Cambodia quietly becoming a satellite state controlled by Beijing? Let's uncover the truth. Cambodia is a small Southeast Asian country, but its location gives it enormous strategic importance. Sandwiched between Thailand, Vietnam, and Laos, and with access to the Gulf of Thailand, it serves as a natural gateway to the South China Sea and the Strait of Malacca, through which a staggering 30% of the world's trade flows. Although China and Cambodia share no common border, these waters are vital for China's Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to link Asia with Africa and Europe through loans and investments. But why Cambodia? It isn't just about geography. Historically, China has been a lifeline for Cambodia's political elite. During the Cold War, China backed the Khmer Rouge regime, even during its darkest days. The Khmer Rouge regime, led by Pol Pot from 1975 to 1979, is infamous for orchestrating one of the darkest chapters in modern history. During this period, the regime attempted to create an agrarian communist utopia by forcefully reshaping society. Cities were emptied, intellectuals and professionals were targeted, and people were sent to brutal labor camps. Over 1.7 million Cambodians, nearly a quarter of the population, died from starvation, overwork, disease, or outright execution in what has been called the Cambodian genocide. Despite this, China supported the Khmer Rouge. Beijing provided funding, weapons, and political backing, partly as a counterbalance to Vietnam and its Soviet allies in the region. While the rest of the world, including the United States, distanced itself from Cambodia or condemned the regime, China's support for Pol Pot remained steadfast even after the Khmer Rouge was ousted in 1979. So, when the rest of the world turned away, China stayed with Cambodia, providing investments and military support. That loyalty built a connection that still exists today. Fast forward to now. Cambodia's government is led by Prime Minister Hun Manet, the son of the former Prime Minister Hun Sen, who ruled for nearly 40 years until 2023. His leadership was marked by a blend of authoritarianism and strategic alliances, particularly with Vietnam and China. Over the years, he's faced a lot of criticism from Western countries about human rights issues and political crackdowns. The US and Europe even imposed sanctions. But instead of folding under pressure, Hun Sen turned to China. Beijing was more than happy to help. Why wouldn't they? Cambodia's location is perfect for China's goals in Southeast Asia. China responded with billions of dollars in aid and investments, building roads, bridges, and other infrastructure. This has helped Cambodia modernize, but it's also tied its future to China. A lot of people wonder if these deals are really in Cambodia's best interest. Some experts warn that Cambodia might fall into a debt trap, where it could be forced to hand over control of important resources to China if it struggles to pay back its loans. A prime example is Dara Sakor, a $3.8 billion Chinese-backed development in Cambodia's Koh Kong province. On paper, it's marketed as a luxurious resort, complete with hotels, casinos, an international airport, and even a deep water port. But beneath the glossy brochures lies a storm of controversies involving land grabs, environmental destruction, and geopolitical intrigue. Back in 2008, the Chinese company Union Development Group, UDG, was granted a 99-year lease to about 20% of Cambodia's coast. That's more than 3 times the legal limit under Cambodian law, which caps land concessions at 10,000 hectares. To skirt these restrictions, UDG initially registered as Cambodian-owned but quickly reverted to Chinese control. Much of the land, including parts of Botum Sakor National Park, was handed over under questionable circumstances. But the land lease granted to the UDG for 99 years sidesteps Cambodia's laws, which prohibit foreign land ownership. This has raised eyebrows internationally. And why does a resort need facilities like a deep water port that can accommodate large military vessels? Could this be more than just tourism? This park, known for its rare wildlife like clouded leopards and Asiatic black bears, has suffered immense ecological damage due to the project. Then there's the issue of geopolitics. Experts argue that this isn't just a business venture, but a strategic foothold for China in Southeast Asia. Why? The project's location is just 100 miles from a key US military facility in Thailand, and its sprawling infrastructure could support military as well as commercial use. The airport, for instance, is capable of handling large military aircraft, even though it's supposedly for tourism. Is this over-engineering or something more calculated? Cambodia's government has embraced the project, claiming it will boost the economy and create jobs. However, local communities tell a different story. Over 1,500 families were evicted, many of them poor fishermen who were displaced to inland areas where their livelihoods collapsed. Despite promises of fair compensation, most claim they were left to fend for themselves, with inadequate support from authorities. These actions drew the attention of the US, which sanctioned UDG under the Global Magnitsky Act, citing its land seizure and displacement of families to make way for a $3.8 billion luxury gambling and lifestyle project. The Cambodian government, however, dismissed these claims as politically motivated. Geopolitically, Darussakhor is part of China's broader Belt and Road Initiative. While Cambodia benefits from the influx of Chinese investment, it also becomes deeply indebted to China. This dependence has fueled concerns that Cambodia is becoming a satellite state, trading its sovereignty for financial aid. Meanwhile, the US and other powers have accused Cambodia of allowing China to use the project for strategic military purposes, a claim both Phnom Penh and Beijing deny. Another example is the Ream Naval Base in Cambodia, a location surrounded by controversies and cloaked in secrecy. This base, nestled along Cambodia's southern coastline, is at the heart of one of the most significant geopolitical dramas of our time. But why does it matter so much? And what does this reveal about Cambodia's growing ties with China? Back in 2019, the Wall Street Journal reported that Cambodia had granted China a secret 30-year lease at Ream. Both nations denied the allegations. Cambodian officials insisted that no foreign military presence would be allowed under their constitution. But why the denials if there was nothing to hide? These suspicions deepened in 2022 when the Washington Post revealed efforts to mask China's growing influence, with Cambodian military officials reportedly blocking outsiders from accessing key areas of the base. Analysts suggested that these areas were undergoing construction aligned with Chinese military needs. The base has seen significant upgrades, including a new 300-meter pier capable of docking large warships, reportedly funded entirely by China. According to satellite images analyzed by the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, 2 Chinese Type 056A corvettes were stationed at Ream for months in 2023, spending nearly 93% of their time docked there. Cambodian officials claimed the warships were part of training exercises, but skeptics have pointed out that no other nation's vessels have used the facility, despite assurances that it would remain open to all once construction was complete. China has reportedly poured significant resources into the project. By 2021, Cambodia had received over $4.6 billion in Chinese grants, a sharp rise from $92.45 million in 2007. This financial dependency makes Cambodia a de facto ally of Beijing. The US has voiced concerns that the base might become a hub for the Chinese Navy, allowing it to project power far beyond its borders. In 2020, Cambodia demolished buildings funded by the US at the base, further fueling accusations of a Chinese military agenda. Washington even imposed sanctions on Cambodian officials linked to the project, alleging corruption and lack of transparency. Why does this matter? If China does secure a foothold at Ream Naval Base, it could reshape the balance of power in Southeast Asia. The base's location on the Gulf of Thailand offers direct access to the South China Sea, a region where China is involved in territorial disputes with several Southeast Asian nations. Would this provoke military confrontations or diplomatic rifts in the region? Well, for Vietnam and Thailand, Ream's transformation feels like a threat. China could use the base for intelligence gathering or to station its navy during regional disputes. Imagine being a neighbor and watching another country's military presence grow right at your border. How would you react? Is Cambodia's reliance on Chinese loans and investments putting its neutrality at risk? For Cambodia, the stakes are high. Hedging between China and other global powers like the US may offer short-term gains but could lead to long-term challenges. Small nations like Cambodia often struggle to maintain neutrality when caught in the crossfire of great power rivalries. And did you know Cambodia owes nearly half of its $10 billion foreign debt to China? These debts are tied to grand infrastructure projects like highways, bridges, and urban developments, but the numbers tell a story of concern. One toll road project alone cost $1.9 billion, financed entirely by Chinese loans under a build, operate, transfer scheme. Under this scheme, a private company, often backed by Chinese state-owned enterprises, finances and builds the infrastructure. They then operate it for a set period, collecting revenue like tolls, before transferring ownership back to the host government. While it seems like a win-win on paper, critics argue that such agreements often heavily favor the foreign investor, leaving countries like Cambodia in a cycle of dependency. Okay, so what happens when a country owes so much to a single lender? Economists often warn against putting all your eggs in one basket, and that's precisely what Cambodia seems to have done. Scholars like Soful argue that this level of dependency risks Cambodia's sovereignty. If the economic benefits don't materialize as expected, the country could find itself vulnerable to diplomatic pressure or even loss of critical infrastructure, as seen in Sri Lanka, where China gained control of a major port due to debt repayment issues. But it's not just about the government debt. Private debt in Cambodia stands at a staggering 180% of GDP, the highest in Southeast Asia. Much of this is tied to the real estate market, which boomed with Chinese investment but has since cooled. Property prices have plummeted, leaving many Cambodians with unfinished projects and crushing debt. The ripple effects have raised fears that this private debt could spill into the public domain, pushing national debt even higher. China's investments in Cambodia have undoubtedly brought development, yet they've also been a double-edged sword. Sihanoukville, for example, has seen rapid urbanization. Once a quiet coastal town, it has turned into a hub dominated by Chinese casinos and businesses. The charm of the area is fading under the weight of high-rise developments, organized crime, and property prices locals cannot afford. Families who have lived there for generations are now forced to move, their culture overshadowed by a foreign influence that seems indifferent to their struggles. Another risk lies in sovereignty. Cambodia has become China's most reliable ally in Southeast Asia, especially within ASEAN, a regional organization of 10 Southeast Asian nations that promotes political and economic cooperation. When disputes arise over the South China Sea, Cambodia consistently sides with Beijing, often blocking joint statements critical of China's expansive claims. This loyalty comes with rewards. China heavily funds Cambodian infrastructure and backs Hun Sen's government. How sustainable is this relationship? Without diversification, Cambodia's economy remains tied to China's fortunes. If China's economy slows, Cambodia could face severe challenges. So, when a nation's economy, military, politics, and cultural identity become heavily influenced by a single power, questions of sovereignty naturally arise. Cambodia's dependence on China risks transforming it into a satellite state, a nation that may retain formal independence but operates in the shadow of its patron. What do you think Cambodia's future holds? Will it find a way to balance its relationships with China and other global powers, or will it lean further into dependency on Beijing? How do you see the role of small nations in the tug-of-war between superpowers? Is Cambodia losing its sovereignty, or is it just fear-mongering? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and if you have a moment, check out another video here. We promise it'll be worth your time.